next we have Vani come over and do her presentation. Again, I could go on and on and on introducing her. So she is with Bristol Myers Squibb, and she is today, she's obviously done multiple hats in that organization, been there for a very long time. Currently, she's head of their IT culture and strategy. But more importantly, she's on a mission to ensure that in India, in Hyderabad especially, there is diversity, there is technology, there is awareness of what BMS represents, and build capability competency here. She is going to be working with a lot of universities, a lot of likes of NASCOMs and HICIAs, etc., to bring that awareness, build the talent pool, and make the Hyderabad office as effective, if not more, than the HQ. Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time to come here, and I think this is a learning opportunity for you, and you're actually making use of that opportunity. And I'm really looking forward to sharing my experiences and also hearing from my other fellow speakers here and learning from others' experiences. So I was asked to do two things. One was to share my career journey, and the second is AI in healthcare. So I'm going to do both of them. So before that, I think just to kind of set the pace of where I work. So I'm at Bristol Myers Squibb, and just we are major biopharma company. Our mission is to discover, deliver innovative medicines to patients globally. And when I'm looking at this, we're really proud to be part of the 165-year-old company where innovation has been at its core. We invest quite a bit in R&D. You see the $9.5 billion, which we have about 50 plus unique clinical assets in clinical development. Patients are at the center of what we do. That's very key and important for us, and it's kind of our North Star. We are in about 85 countries with over 1 million patients. Just going to talk about like the 4 therapeutic areas that I want to highlight, which is immunology, hematology, oncology, and cardiovascular are some of the areas that we are in. Our people, extremely important for us. We continue to focus on our people. We have about 34,000 employees. On this when I talk about my story. So we have people and business resource groups. I'm sure there are many places where there are communities that come together. It's like the Women's Resource Group, the Veterans Group, and the other organizations. So just moving, so before I go into my story, I actually wanted to bring this up. So this is by Steve Jobs. You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in the future. Now this spoke to me quite a bit for my story, because I'll share a little bit, and you'll see that when I look back, I'm in Hyderabad, but everything that I've done the last 25, 30 years have got me to Hyderabad. And so that's why I wanted to highlight that first before I go and start connecting my dots here. So my journey in Bristol Myers Squibb began in 1997. And whenever I think of my first day, so right now in Hyderabad, we're almost every Monday, we have an onboarding day. I'm inviting people and bringing them on. So I always go back to what my first day looked like. So this is what my true first day was at Bristol Myers Squibb. So I came in, my boss, wonderful person, Hugh Sloan, welcomed me. I said I was very excited to join BMS, and my next statement to him was, I'm pregnant with my second child. And he didn't flinch, congratulated me, took me around, did all my, had the same work that he had assigned for me. My colleagues were all, and at that time I was the only woman, didn't matter. We did the same amount of work, and the only thing they would joke is that they would actually have to take me to the hospital, and it almost happened because I worked till Friday. Saturday I went into labor and Akhil was born. so that was my first day, and so you can imagine, what I'm bringing along with me. I've been there now 26 years. And I still remember that first day and how positive it was. And that really, makes me kind of give back more to the company too. So I looked at the next, till years of growth. I've done a lot of lateral moves. Almost for 15 years, I didn't change my level, but I changed my roles. Every 3 or 4 years, I took a new role. And with those new roles, I took additional responsibilities. And so that's why I call this the year of growth. And I also did business certificate at Wharton. So I've kind of started building some of those skill sets. I didn't know where I was going, but I started building those skill sets. And I've also moved within the different divisions all in IT, but I was supporting the different areas between the different divisions at Bristol Myers Squibb. And then in 2013, I really felt, okay, technically I'm strong, but I really wanted to work on my leadership skills. And this is where I spoke about in the previous slide where I said the people in business resource groups. So that was a good resource. So there was a business network of women. And I'm like, okay, let me join it. But just joining is not good enough because you have to do something. So I took a leadership role there. And at that time, they wanted to do a STEM program for the underprivileged in the community. And it was just a vision. And I was like, this is wonderful, because this is the area that I want to grow in. I joined there. We were about 4 of us, and we each took a role. So my role was external engagement. And Sirisha was just talking about, I'm here to do some of the external work. So it was the external engagement. So as part of the external engagement, I set up a collaboration with an organization called Foray. And then we branded it. It's called Tomorrow's Innovators. And now, 14 years later, it's still sustainable. We still have those programs and they're still continuing. And so I just wanted to highlight in terms of the growth, there are different ways for us to grow. We grow technically, but we also have to kind of start growing outside of our technical comfort as to how do we grow with the other soft skills that we have. If what I did there actually got me the job, the IT for strategy and business development. Because if you look at a role for strategy and business development, this is mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures. So you are the head of IT. You have to do those negotiations. You have to be there. You don't have a phone a friend. You're sitting in a negotiation. You're representing IT. You got to make decisions. I would not have been able to do that if I didn't get comfortable speaking outside, if I didn't get that confidence to do that. And of course, the years of growth gave me the technical expertise that I could actually take to the table. So I did that for 4 years, and then last year, actually last September, August, our Greg Myers, our Chief Digital and Technology Officer, said, hey, is anybody interested in going to India and helping set it up? So I did raise my hand. So I've been on this project since last September. I moved here 3 months ago. It's already 90 days. I'm here on an 18-month assignment. Absolutely loving it. Hyderabad is a very welcoming city, and just be me invited to be here and meet everybody. So it's excellent talent, and so this is just a little bit on my journey and how I got here. Now moving into AI. So even AI, I'm going to, again, it's part of the story that I'm going to kind of bring along here, because there can be conventional and unconventional ways with which you learn and with which you grow. And my venture into AI was a little unconventional, but it's more in the VC space, I should say. So when I took on the IT for strategy and business development, I've taken on stretch assignments wherever I went, whichever role I was in. In that area, there was no digital health search and evaluation in the business development organization at that time. So the BD head, Paul Biondi, had asked me at that time, do you want to take this on? And I said, I knew it was a stretch, I knew it was a lot of work, but I said, why not? Let me take that on. So I led digital health for 2 years, the search and evaluation. And as part of the digital health search and evaluation, I have met with hundreds of companies, have done evaluation of their offerings, and we have an event at JP Morgan every year that we go to meet potentials. And I've led those JP Morgan meetings for 2 years. And this is where you actually sit across the founders, you sit across the different CEOs, and you get to hear their passion, you get to hear what they're doing, why they're doing it. Their stories actually are pretty moving. And that was my first venture into AI. I remember the first meeting, I must have organized, of course there were about 100, 150, but then you kind of narrow it down. So I must have met about 30, 35 companies. And 99% of them came in with one slide which said, we are an AI company. So everything was AI. My first, so I had with R&D was more of the innovation day. And we did the hyper reality. That was the first thing I did. It's like hyper reality. Because there was so much talk about AI, is it real? Is it not real? Do we have enough data? Do we not have enough data? But we did have a few, we continued watching it. In some areas it was a little bit more advanced, like speech recognition, NLP, EMRs. Everybody was reading EMRs. Everybody you spoke to were reading EMRs. So it was growing, and then of course you had your, your deep learning techniques that were approaching. So there was a lot of work going on, and we could see that evolution. And we at Bristol Myers Squibb, we were also starting to experiment and pilot some of the work there. While this was going on externally, internally we were starting to build our own data sets in terms of how do we want to look at our clinical data, how do we want to look at our real world data in there. So we were slowly starting to kind of build, and that's when the data scientists came in. So there was a lot of work in terms of the digital predictive analytics using AI ML, and then we started moving towards the cloud at that time, and then somewhere around 2020 MLOps came in to provide the structure around it. So we continued, and we still continue to do that. So today when we look at, and I think Surisha, you said that, one of the questions that I always asked when the companies came to meet us was the bias in the data, because I know in certain areas it was the facial recognition was there, and so there was a lot of bias in the data. So where are we today? I can't say we're totally out of bias, but I think we are a little bit more advanced because we have more advanced data sets. We have the ability to now a lot of the off-the-shelf algorithms. So I think we are at a much more advanced stage, which is actually letting us experiment more, I should say more confidently than what we did before. So, so I just spoke about Greg a short while ago. So Greg, if you follow him on LinkedIn, he's all AI in healthcare. There is a very good YouTube conversation with him where he gives a lot of details on AI in drug discovery. And so what he has done is he's really kind of elevated how we think about technology in here, and what do we mean to the business. Like we are right now, when I look at IT is very integral to the business and all aspects of the business. So when you're looking at, be it, so I'll walk through, we have research, development, we have our global product and supply chain, commercialization, and we have enabling functions. We are very much integral and we're embedded in all aspects of it. And so I will talk about 3 examples, and I think this is all it'll all start sounding very familiar because when we looking at healthcare and what we're talking about. So the first one is in the area of research. So we truly believe the power of science to be able to tackle the most complex of healthcare challenges. But computer science is becoming equally important as your chemistry and biology. And the computer science, along with our AI and ML, may as well not use that because that's the topic, but the AI and ML, it's really changing the way we discover and develop. It's absolutely making a difference. Biology is very complex. And when you're starting to think about a scientist reviewing something, it does take, there's a lot of data, a lot of data sets to go through. So if somebody has to manually do it, when I say manually, it's it does take a lot of time, it's time consuming. And traditionally when you look at research, it's experimentation, it's trial and error. So what we're hoping with our AI, ML and other technologies is to be able to parse through those vast data sets and to be able to help and assist the scientists in narrowing it down and giving them more real data sets they can work with. So I think that is one of the areas that we are definitely very focused on with AI and discovery. We do partner extensively at Bristol Myers Squibb, so we are partnered with small and large drug discovery firms. And these firms use AI and ML in different aspects to reduce, or I should say to increase quickly, come up with in the R&D phases. And some of those areas are, you have your RNA sequencing, your gene splicing, and protein folding are some of those areas. So, and again, AI and ML is a very important tool for our scientists to be able to take work along with it and to be able to kind of move quickly. And our outcomes that we always want is better medicines for our patients quickly. The second example is AI enabling clinical trials. So if we actually look at, again, going back to traditionally what pharma company is very good at, is we know our drug pathways. We know the treatment pathways. So we are very good at that. So what we're doing here is taking the knowledge that we have in-house, taking the learnings that we have historically, and then combining it with data, internally and externally, to again predictively help our scientists do it better. So that's, and if we look at the data that we have, it's like, this is for years we've been collecting all this data. So it's anywhere from molecular to translational to your imaging, clinical, your real world data. And what we're hoping to do with this data is, these are all like puzzle pieces, no? So how do you kind of put them together and help us learn the biology of the disease? So that's how it all comes together magically. And it's not magically because behind the scenes you have your AI and ML working the magic there. I actually put this slide up because there is sometimes a misconception that as AI and ML is coming in, not in the case of radiology, but in the case of a science here, is we don't need as many as the subject matter experts. But that's not true, because we have found that there's a different type of subject matter experts that are coming together. And that's why I pulled up this quote from Marianne, where we have cross-functional teams. You have biostatisticians, computer scientists, you have your development teams, you have your IT, chemists, biologists. They all come together to be able to work on this. The example I have here is we have partnered again with an external, with a AI company that's helping us optimize clinical trials in cardiovascular. So here, they take real world data, they take off the patient information, and they produce the outcomes that can help us get a better set of patients, which again is more diverse and which is much more comprehensive than what we were doing it in a traditional way. Now, this one is, again, everything is going to start sounding familiar, because once you start putting AI in places. So we also have partnered with another international AI firm for an algorithm that actually reviews the electrocardiograms. And what it does is it's looking for an abnormality called HCM, which is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It usually goes undetected. So this condition actually, it causes the hardening of the heart muscles, and a patient who has this has to have some invasive surgery, and a lot of times it's not detected. So we have an algorithm that actually detects that, and it will notify the physician, and then they can run some additional tests. So these are just kind of some of the examples that I put together where AI and healthcare are coming together. Okay. And then again, do I believe it has the potential to revolutionize? I've been watching it for a while. I think it's only going to get better. And ChatGPT is everywhere. We're closely watching the generative AI. We're also experimenting with open and closed source code. So again, we have to keep our pulse on it, and we have to use it appropriately with all the guardrails that we have in order to kind of use it more effectively. And then even if you take off, like when we look at enabling functions, when we look at how we, like automation is a big one. And the reason I think about that is, what you're doing here is you're taking away some of these transactional, repetitive work, so the experts can actually focus on the more strategic work. So I think that's another aspect of it. Indirectly, it's also helping the patient. So I think that's another angle. So I actually put this one up because again, we're talking of ChatGPT. So I visited Udaipur last week, and we were driving from Udaipur to Kumbhalgarh. On the way, it was like pouring rain all over, pouring. But one scene was common. It was a 2-hour drive, so 1 hour 15 minutes it rained. So that 1 hour 15 minutes, I saw women, mostly it was women, who were carrying fodder for their cattle. And in the rain, they didn't care, they were just going. In fact, we stopped and I asked, can I take a picture? They actually turned around and smiled. So this is exactly what I put into ChatGPT. And I said, write me a blog. So ChatGPT wrote me a blog. And this is something that I was thinking, but I couldn't express, but ChatGPT did express it for me, and I want to kind of highlight that, As I walked away, I realized that I was just witnessed something special. It had given me a glimpse into the life of these hardworking women who are not afraid to face the rain and do what they needed to do. And for me, this was very profound. And I think each one of us, I think we're all caregivers, mothers, spouses, daughters, and we do a lot. And I think above all, we are technologists. So I think we have the power. We can do whatever we need to do, and I think we shouldn't be afraid to take that step to do it. So with that, I want to close it out and just say power to all of us.
We will have time for questions once the other speaker is done too. And the fact that it is all repetitive, it's all sounding the same, actually emphasizes the fact that technology is actually going in the right direction. We're at least talking the same thing. We'll figure out how to get there. And a couple of things that I noted that I thought were relevant for us to kind of use as key takeaways. The hyper-reality that started way back is still the same. So it's going to stay the same. Nothing's going to change in that context, right? So anything that's coming up new, I think it's extremely, extremely important to focus on what the use case is and why are we doing it. Technology, if it's an enabler, I think it'll take us places. If it's used just for the heck of it, I don't think, yeah, somebody like Neeta will find it out and not invest in that anyway. Right? So, again, drug discovery, the use case is phenomenal. And to Vani's point, wherever you have large amounts of data, in fact, wherever you have data from different modalities, like she showed us with regards to, say, a CT scan versus some other imaging to actual EMR data. So if you have multiple modalities of data, how do you even make sense of it if you were analyzing it without using machine and machine-based techniques? I think that's very, very relevant. One other thing that I want to talk about, again, all AI implementations doesn't have to be, you know, high profile, extremely sexy. No, it doesn't have to be. In fact, one of the customers that we worked with, we used AI in the clinical trials aspect, but we used it for a very, very different purpose. We said, typically when somebody comes for a clinical trial, they're supposed to, you know a certain things. There's a set of questions that they have to be apprised of, they should give their consent, etc. Most often than not, it's not a malpractice per se, but there are certain questions that get ignored. So we built a platform using, again, text to speech to text rather, and then we analyzed and told the caregiver there, or the clinical trial expert, whether all questions have been addressed or not, just to ensure that there is no, you know, after all the good work that you do, you don't want that particular record to be taken away just because you've not followed certain guidelines, right? So this was a company called Trier that got acquired by Velocity, and then they're a part of that team right now. So it was a very interesting use case. You wouldn't think that, you know, why would somebody want to use AI there, right? I could use it for, you know, churning huge amounts of data and generating insights out of it and automatically figuring out which drug is better. Yeah, all of that happens. But there's a lot of grunt work that can be automated as well, and that gives the experts, the subject matter experts, time to focus on something that's more interesting, right? So thank you so much. Reiterates everything that we spoke about.